Hi everyone, welcome to this week. This week we learn third declension nouns, which is a new declension of noun. But before we do that, we'll review kind of declensions in general. Remember that declensions are a way of organizing nouns, right? Organizing the different ways that nouns work. So in English, the way to think of it is if English had declensions, the declensions might be organized by how English nouns form plurals. So if you look here, right, sort of a group of nouns that add s, a group of nouns that sort of change their vowel, a group of nouns that add ies, a group of nouns that stay the same, and there are other examples. But this is what declensions do. They categorize the behavior of nouns, all right? In Latin, there are 5 declensions. The third is by far the biggest, the declension with the most nouns, all right? We've learned first and second so far, and now third. All right, these are first declension endings. All right, remember that they're kind of characterized by that A, right? And again, remember the declensions categorize how nouns behave, and so first declension endings use that A. Most first declension nouns are feminine. There are some exceptions which are listed here. All right, and that's first declension. These are endings that you should recognize. No. These are second declension nouns, of course. All right, this is sort of our kind of I/O with some U's thrown in there, declension. All right. Second declension nouns are masculine, but there is a neuter group, right? And there are these nouns that have R in their nominative instead of US. And here are the neuter endings. Remember, they're the same except for the nominative, singular and plural. And then we also get introduced to the neuter rule, which says that neuter nouns will have the same nominative and accusative plural. All right, so these are the declensions we already know, so make sure that you know this. As we introduce new declensions and really any new forms, the possibility for overlap in endings increases, and that overlap in endings increases the potential for confusion. So it's important that you know endings and that you know vocab, but we'll talk about that when we get to take a look at our declension nouns. All right, here's a chart of all of the declension endings. All right, we obviously haven't learned fourth and fifth yet, but it's worth sort of seeing them. There are some patterns that go across declensions. So for instance, if you look at the ablative, I'll get rid of that X, all ablatives are single vowels that are the vowels kind of the declension. All accusative singulars end in M, all right, plus the vowel of the declension. All right, all accusative plurals end in S, plus the vowel of the declension. All genitive plurals have an M with that vowel of the declension, and some sort of U or RU. All right, and that kind of changes. All dative and ablative plural have some sort of vowel S combination, with third and fourth having that B, U in the middle as well. All right, so it is good to see this horizontally. We're sort of used to them vertically, but it is good to see them horizontally and some of the patterns that are. All right, and this just spells out some of those rules. All right, so here are third declension nouns. The first thing to point out is that guy. All right, third declension nouns do not have a set nominative singular. That nominative singular form is going to be variable. It's going to change from noun to noun. Now, there are some patterns. Excuse me. There are some patterns, and you can see some of those patterns here. I won't go through them all, but if you want to pause and sort of zoom in and check them out, you can do that. But third declension nouns will not have a set nominative. That's what that dash kind of indicates. All right. Otherwise, there are the endings, and you can see that rex, the word for king, right? That is that sort of variable form. X is by no means the nominative singular for third declension, though there are plenty of X nouns. All right. So learn those endings, pause, study those endings, make sure to know them. But those are the third declension endings. All right. There are neuter third declension nouns as well. And I should mention with the last slide that those third declension nouns are going to be masculine or feminine. There's no way of telling, though some of those patterns will have associated genders. You just have to memorize the gender of third declension nouns. All right, these are the neuter nouns forms. They're exactly the same, except that variable nominative then becomes a variable accusative by virtue of the neuter rule, right? If the nominative and accusative of neuter nouns are going to be the same, then obviously the accusative singular is going to be the same variable form as that nominative singular. And as we've seen with all neuter nouns, you have a for the nominative and accusative plural. All right, so some exercises for third declension nouns. So just forming the stem. And the important thing with third declension nouns, because of that variable nominative that you can see there, you get the stem from the genitive singular. And the genitive singular of third declension is is. So that's going to signify that you're dealing with a third declension noun. But you take that is, you chop it off, and that gets you your stem. All right, but it's important not to get the stem from the nominative singular, but rather the genitive singular. So for number one, the word for body, right, the stem is going to be corpore, right? And there goes that is, and that's where the IR. So for death, mors mortis, the stem is going to be mort. And then the stems continue from there. So just make sure to practice dealing with that genitive singular and adding the endings to that stem rather than the nominative singular. So for this exercise, and I'll do a little bit of it, it's a triple Venn diagram or a Venn diagram plus. The idea is to get used to those overlapping endings. So going through the endings of all three declensions, writing endings that are only first, only second, only third, and then where they overlap. So for instance, AE is only a first, all right? But A is all declensions, all right? I is second and third, all right? And just kind of go through like that. As I said, as we learn more declensions and endings, it becomes more important to be aware of overlapping endings, because those overlapping endings will cause some problems if you're not ready for them. All right, so you can fill that out on your own. All right, so now we're just identifying case and number. All right, and obviously declension as well. All right, as we're learning more declensions, it becomes particularly important to be aware of vocab information, because that's going to determine what an ending is. So for instance, if we look at numbers 3 and 4, soxy is soxum soxy, which makes it a second declension noun. All right, that makes that I genitive singular. All right, it is a neuter noun, so it's not going to be nominative plural. If it were a masculine noun, it would be nominative plural as well. Regus, as we've seen, is rex regus, which makes it a third declension noun, and that is going to be dative singular. All right, and that's what I mean by overlapping endings. There's nothing in those words to tell you that one is genitive and one is dative. You have to know the declension and the vocab information. So make sure when you're doing this to look these words up. All right, so for instance, I won't tell you, but 5, 6, and 7 are all 3 different declensions. So make sure to be looking those up and knowing what they are going to be. With the new declension, that complicates agreement. All right, remember that agreement is when adjectives have the same gender, number, and case as the noun they're modifying. When we learned to and to or adjectives, you might remember that with those first declension masculine nouns, so something like nauta, all right, if we wanted to say the tall sailor, it would have to be altus. The endings are different because nauta is masculine, and the US is, of course, the masculine ending. So with third declension endings, or third declension endings, you're going to have even more of that, where you can't determine agreement by the same ending. You have to make sure to be determining agreement by same gender, number, case. So kiwitas, if you look this up, you see that kiwitas, that as actually happens to be the nominative singular. It's kiwitas, kiwitatis. So in fact, Noah agrees with it because they are both feminine singular nominative. All right, so noas, even though it has the same ending, because noas is usaum, because as for noas is first declension, that's accusative plural, whereas kiwitas, that as happens to be its nominative singular. So they do not agree, and noos, of course, same thing. All right, so we're going to look at number 4, matrum. All right, again, this is a third declension noun, so that's going to be genitive plural, that um. So litum, litum, I should say, no. Litum, no, because of course with that second declension for litum, that is accusative singular rather than genitive plural. Litarum, genitive plural feminine, is going to agree with matram. So it becomes more and more important to be aware of vocab information so that you can determine what exactly those endings are indicating. Excuse me. So this is Johns Hopkins, the motto. All right. And you can see veritas, just like cuitas, which was on the last one. That is a third declension noun. That is its nominative. So veritas liberabit vos. Truth will set you free. But note that truth is the nominative, all right, even though it has what you've learned up to this point is an accusative plural ending. Again, third declension nouns have those variable nominative forms, and veritas just happens to have as its nominative singular. All right, so here we have the same noun, veritate, object of the preposition cum, which takes the ablative, and you can see that E ending for the ablative. All right, so peace, concord, harmony, right, concordia, along with truth. All right, and that's that ablative accompaniment that we've learned in previous weeks. But you can see that third declension E ending now for the ablative singular. All right, thought this was kind of a funny one. Just the declension of Netflix. All right, apparently Netflix is a third declension noun. And you can see that we have our standard third declension endings done out here. All right. For some reason, they use the adjective endings. That's why that I is there for the ablative instead of the E. We'll learn that either the next week or the following week. But kind of a fun thing to see. All right. This is kind of a cool example. A little hard to see, but this is an ancient Roman ring. All right. And you can see there and there the dative endings. All right, for mater and pater, mother and father. So, for whom was this ring intended? Matri, patri, for mother, for father. And there are those dative endings at work. All right, this is Columbia's motto. So, in your light, in lumina, all right, we will see light. But again, there's that ablative ending of a third declension noun. All right, this is kind of a fun little race t-shirt. So finis, let's get a better color. Finis, coronat, opus, both of these are third declension nouns. Finis happens to be the nominative singular. So the finish, the end, right, justifies, crowns, literally, coronat. And opus is work, but it is a neuter noun, so that is the accusative singular, a neuter third declension noun, so that is the accusative singular for that noun. So the end justifies the work. All right, so here are a couple other mottos that I don't necessarily have images for. All right, at least I didn't include. All right, so artes and veritas. We talked about veritas already. Artes is that nominative plural. So arts, science, and truth. That's the University of Michigan motto. Here are four of those X nouns I was talking about. So lux, lex, dux, rex. So light, law, leader, king. All right, just all lined up there. And then here, down here, this third declension text from Cicero. All right, we've got three accusatives. So frigus is a neuter accusative. That's why it's got that US. Sitim is a bit of an irregular accusative. And then famem is your standard third declension accusative. So he was able to bear cold, thirst, hunger. All right, but the important thing, he was able to bear, podrat, thera. Oh, sorry about that. All right, he was able to bear, he was able to bear, and then your three accusatives, cold, thirst, hunger. All right, but the important thing is there's new forms, right? So the neuter form, frigus, and the non-neuter form, famem. Again, situm is a bit of an irregular. All right, so if we move over here, all right, Plautus is monachemy, we've talked about that a couple times. So identify the declension, all right, of each. These are all nominatives. All right, so something like mendicus, parasitus, hariolus, all right, with that US ending, they should be second declension, all right, confirm that they are, because you've seen that some third declensions can be US, all right, we've got an X noun there, an O noun there, adolescens, pauper, and then rex, is third. But again, look those up. Those will be third declension, but make sure to get their stems, see how those third declension nouns work, kind of get a sense of their nominatives and their genitives. Excuse me. All right, so in this one, genus is a third declension neuter noun that has some adjectives agreeing with it. All right, how many are there? All right, and which ones are they? I will give you a hint. All right, mixtum is one. Again, remember, because it's neuter, it's mixtus aum. All right, so that is going to agree neuter nominative singular with genus. All right, and then over here on the right, Seneca. So these are all third declension nouns. All right, so what possible case numbers, genders are they? Oh, one more down here that I missed. All right, you don't have to translate them. You don't have to even figure out their case number, gender, and context. Just by ending, what can they be? All right, so in other words, that A can only be neuter. So that's going to be nominative or accusative, neuter, plural. All right, and then just go through and identify the endings of the others. All right, let's take a look at this week's summatives. So here's the reading, and there's a part A and a part B, and you're just identifying by case and number. So use those charts. Good time to practice. All right, I'll do the first couple for you. So paca with that E ending is going to be ablative singular. All right, lege, so that ES is going to be either nominative or accusative plural. All right, so as I said, make sure to use those, review those charts, make sure to know those, and identify the case and number of those forms. Here's part B, where you're just translating some sentences. All right, again, we've got some new endings that are not only going to be new, of course, but also going to overlap with some endings you know, so make sure to be careful about those. All right, so great virtue will be for brothers. All right, brothers will have great virtue. And fratribus is that dative of possession that we learned last week, right? So with that verb to be erit, right, there will be great virtue for brothers, or brothers will have great virtue. All right, there are only 5 more, so I'll leave those to you. But that is part B of the reading summit. All right, this is the writing. So now you're going to translate those word pairs into Latin. It's going to deal with agreement. Remember, we talked about how with third declension endings, it's going to be more difficult to do agreement because you can't just go by like endings. So if you look at the example, magna civitas, right, those things agree. So what you need to do is take the noun, right, identify its gender, its number, and its case. So in this case, feminine, singular, and nominative. All right, then take feminine, singular, nominative, apply it to the adjective. So it's an us, adjective, and the feminine, singular, nominative of that is the A ending, and that's where the magna comes from. So in other words, states, all right, same noun, civitas, civitatis, all right. It's nominative, it's obviously plural because the English is plural. So again, I need the gender, number, case of states. Sorry, I'm running out of room here. So feminine, nominative, plural. Great. Same adjective. So magnus aum, the feminine nominative plural of magnus aum is magni. So it's going to be magni civitates. All right. So again, identify the gender, number, case of the noun. Find that. Right. So number 2, mater, matris. Third declension noun, accusative singular feminine. So the accusative singular feminine of the noun, you form that. Then you find the accusative singular feminine of the adjective, and you form that. You're not going to put the same endings on, right? Because each declension has its own endings, but those endings refer to a specific gender, number, and case, and that's what you need to match up. All right, and finally, some sentences from English to Latin. All right, I'm not going to do this for you because there are only 3 of them, but just remember, same thing, identify the function, identify which case that's going to be, make sure you know the declension, and find the appropriate endings, and then build from there. All right, so that's it for this week. Please be in touch if you have any questions, and I'll be here next week. Thanks.